He pulled the car over. He didn't say a word. He just reached across, opened the passenger door, and told her to get out, on the side of the road. At night, in the rain, she looked at him, stunned, shaking. This was her husband, the man she had cooked for every single morning, the man she had given up everything for, and he was throwing her out of their car like she was garbage. "Get out," he said again, cold, no emotion, no remorse. So she did. She stood on that sidewalk, soaking wet, suitcase at her feet, and stared up at the enormous iron gates in front of her. Gates she hadn't walked through in 3 years. Gates she had left behind because she believed in love over money. Gates that bore the name of a family so wealthy, entire governments courted them. Her family name. Her husband had no idea where he had just dropped her off. No idea whose gates those were. No idea that the woman he had just humiliated, discarded, and abandoned on a rainy Tuesday night was the only daughter of one of the richest men alive. But he was about to find out. And you will not believe what happened next. 3 years earlier, Maya Chen was 26 years old and choosing the hardest path she'd ever walked. She wasn't the daughter of a wealthy man. She was the only daughter of Edward Chen, founder of Celestial Holdings, a conglomerate spanning tech, real estate, energy, and finance across 4 continents. Forbes didn't just put Edward on their list. They called him a category of his own. His net worth wasn't measured in billions. It was measured in something most of us can't even visualize. And Maya? Maya had grown up behind those iron gates. Private schools, private jets, staff who addressed her as Miss Chen before she even learned to tie her shoes. She had everything, and felt none of it was really hers. So at 26, she made a choice that shocked her father's entire world. She left. She didn't take the family credit cards. She didn't take the apartment staff or the driver, or even the phone plan under her father's name. She took a single suitcase, a degree in art history, and the burning desire to know, just once, what it felt like to be loved for exactly who she was, not what her last name could buy. She moved into a shared apartment with 2 roommates who thought she was an ordinary girl from a well-off family. She got a job as an assistant curator at a small gallery. She paid her own rent. She bought grocery store wine on Friday nights and felt proud every single time. That was where she met Daniel Park. Daniel was 30 years old, an architect at a small firm, smart, ambitious, funny in that self-deprecating way that makes you trust someone immediately. He had grown up middle class, worked his way through university, and wore his modest life like a badge of pride. When he met Maya at that gallery, he didn't see wealth. He couldn't. There was none on display. He saw a woman who was brilliant and warm and slightly unpredictable, and he fell hard. They dated for a year. He proposed with a ring he'd saved up for over 8 months. She cried. He cried. It was real. What she didn't tell him, what she kept locked away, was the truth about her father, about the gates, about the empire. She told herself it wasn't a lie. It was a test. She wanted to build something real first. She wanted love that didn't come with fine print. What she didn't know was that Daniel's own ambitions were quietly growing. That the modest man who had charmed her at a gallery was starting to feel the weight of what he didn't have, and starting to resent her for reasons even he couldn't fully explain. The cracks started small, a sharp comment here, a dismissive gesture there, the way he talked over her at dinners with his colleagues, the way he stopped asking about her day, and then it all changed. The argument started over something small, the way the worst ones always do. Daniel had been passed over for a promotion, again. His firm had brought in an outside hire, someone younger, someone with more high-profile projects on his resume. Daniel came home tight-jawed, silently furious, and Maya had made the mistake of suggesting, gently, that maybe it was an opportunity to freelance, to go after the bigger commissions he always talked about. He looked at her like she had slapped him. "You don't get it," he said. "You've never struggled a single day in your life. You don't know what it costs to actually build something from nothing." Maya felt the air leave the room. She had given up everything to build something real. She had walked away from a world that would have handed her everything on a platter. And here was the man she loved, accusing her of never struggling. The irony was so painful it almost made her laugh. But she didn't laugh. She went quiet, and in that quietness, something between them shifted permanently. Over the following weeks, Daniel's mood darkened. He began staying late at the office, or said he was. He stopped touching her hand across the table. He spoke to her with a clipped efficiency, like she was a coworker he tolerated, not the woman he had proposed to in the rain. And then one evening, while Maya was washing dishes, she overheard him on the phone in the hallway. His voice was low, careful, but not careful enough. She has no money, man. None. I thought she was going places, but she's just a gallery girl. She's not what I need right now. Maya turned off the tap. Slowly. She stood there in the silence of the kitchen for a very long moment. She had risked everything for this man. Left behind a world of unlimited resources to stand in this kitchen, in this life, washing these dishes. And he was telling someone on the phone that she wasn't enough. The next few days were a performance. She moved through the apartment like everything was normal. She packed her clothes slowly, methodically, one item at a time, while Daniel was at work. She called her father, the first time in 3 years. Edward Chen answered on the second ring. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "Where are you? I'll send a car." "No," she said quietly. "I need to do this myself. I just wanted you to know I'm coming home." She didn't tell Daniel she was leaving. She wanted to. She'd written the conversation in her head 100 different ways. But something told her to wait, to let the moment happen as it was going to happen, without her choreographing it. The confrontation came on a Thursday evening. Daniel arrived home to find 2 suitcases by the door. He looked at them, looked at her. His jaw tightened. "What is this?" "I'm leaving," she said simply. "You're being dramatic." He didn't even set his bag down. "I heard your phone call, Daniel." Something shifted behind his eyes. But instead of shame or remorse, what settled across his face was something closer to relief. Like he'd been waiting for her to figure it out, so he wouldn't have to be the one to end it. "Fine," he said. "Just that, fine. I'll drive you. Where are you going? Back to your roommates?" She almost said no, but then something made her say the address, her father's address. She gave him the street, the district, not the name, not the gate number, just the address. And Daniel, without any idea of what awaited him, threw her bags in the trunk and drove. The drive took 40 minutes. It rained the whole way. Neither of them spoke. Daniel's jaw was set. Maya sat with her hands in her lap, watching the city lights blur through the wet glass. When they reached the district, when the streets began widening, the buildings began spacing apart, when the ordinary world began giving way to the extraordinary, Daniel slowed the car. He glanced around, confused. This wasn't a neighborhood. This was something else entirely. And then, through the rain, the gates appeared. Iron, towering, lit from below with lights that made them glow amber against the black sky. And at the center of those gates, a crest, the Celestial Holdings crest, known in financial circles across the world. Daniel's foot hit the brake. He stared. "Why are we—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Maya looked at him. She looked at those gates, and for the first time in the entire car ride, she felt completely calm. "This is where I grew up," she said. "This is my father's home." "Your what?" His voice had dropped to almost nothing. "Open the trunk, please," she said. He didn't move. "Daniel." Her voice was steady, quiet, like the still moment before something enormous happens. "Open the trunk." He reached down and pressed the release. Maya stepped out into the rain. She lifted her bags from the trunk herself. She didn't ask for help. She didn't look back. She pressed the intercom at the gate. A voice responded instantly, warm, professional, and the great iron gates swung open. And there, coming down the long driveway in a black coat, was Edward Chen. He was a man who commanded boardrooms and bent markets, But in that moment, he walked like a father. He walked fast. He wrapped his arms around his daughter without a word. And Maya, who had held herself so perfectly composed for weeks, finally let go. She cried against her father's shoulder in the rain. 3 years of stubborn pride dissolving in a single moment. Edward Chen looked up once, just once, at the man standing frozen beside the small car, mouth open, rain soaking through his jacket, the full weight of what he had done, and who he had done it to, landing on him all at once. He didn't speak to Daniel. He simply turned, arm around his daughter's shoulders, and they walked back through the gates. The gates swung shut. Maya didn't move back into her childhood bedroom immediately. She sat in the kitchen of her father's house that night, the enormous, warm kitchen she had grown up in, and drank tea with a housekeeper who had known her since she was 7 years old. She didn't feel like a winner. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired. She felt sad. Because even now, even after everything, a part of her was grieving the man she had believed Daniel to be when she first met him at that gallery. That man, the one who'd stared at a painting with quiet intensity and made her laugh for the first time in a year. He had been real. She hadn't imagined him. But somewhere between ambition and insecurity and resentment, he had stopped choosing to be that person. And she couldn't fix that. She could only choose herself. In the weeks that followed, things moved with a quiet inevitability. Her father's legal team handled the separation with swift precision. Daniel attempted contact twice. His first message was defensive. His second was stunned. She imagined the moment he actually looked up Celestial Holdings and saw the numbers, saw the scope, understood the entirety of what had been sitting across his breakfast table every morning. She never responded. Edward Chen, who had spent 3 years respecting his daughter's choice, even when it broke his heart, never said a word against Daniel to her face. He only said this: "You went looking for someone who would love you without knowing your worth, and you found out exactly what you needed to know. That's not failure, Maya. That's wisdom you bought with 3 years of your life." She framed it, in a way. Not literally, but she carried those words differently than she'd carried anything before. Because her father was right. The experiment had worked. It just hadn't worked the way she'd hoped. And there was something clarifying about knowing, truly knowing, that the love she deserved existed. She simply hadn't found it yet. 6 months later, Maya launched her own gallery, a small space in the arts district, funded entirely by herself, using her own money, under her own name, not the Chen name, her name, Maya. On opening night, her father stood in the back of the room in a plain jacket, watching strangers admire his daughter's work and his daughter's weight. And he had to turn away for a moment, because he didn't want anyone to see Edward Chen cry. She had walked out of those gates 3 years ago, looking for proof that she was worth loving, without a price tag attached. She came back through them, knowing something even more powerful. She was worth loving. Full stop. The price tag was irrelevant. It always had been. After everything Maya gave up, everything she risked, everything she swallowed in silence, just to know the truth about who she was, beyond her last name. The thing that stays with you isn't the look on Daniel's face at those gates. It's the moment she walked back through them and chose herself. Here's what I want you to sit with for a second. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself, your success, your background, your ambition, because you were afraid it would change how someone saw you? Drop your answer in the comments below. I genuinely want to know, because I think more people carry a version of Maya's story than we ever talk about. If this hit you somewhere real today, hitting that subscribe button is how you tell us to keep finding stories like this. Stories that are raw and human and impossible to look away from. This channel exists for exactly this.